Chapter 9. I was alone in the cold streets of New York City. They were empty. That was the only way I knew it was a dream. Even at night, there were always cars passing by, honking horns and swerving to miss any drunken pedestrians that wandered into the middle of the road. There was nothing. Nothing. And I wasn't dressed in the crude remains of what Mitch and Johan changed me into to exact their torture. I was now in a red, flowing dress that whipped in the breeze. There was a chill in the air that signalled the coming of winter. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold on to whatever warmth that I could, but there was none. My legs propelled me forward, but to what? I was completely alone. There were no people, no animals. All there were the empty cars and deserted streets of the city I adored. Then I heard the screams. They were quiet at first, almost like a whisper, and grew louder. I began to run, my heart pounding with anxiety and dread that filled me. What was I running to? The screams? But where were they coming from? Nowhere and everywhere. They were coming from all around me. I stopped and turned, trying to find its source, but there was nothing to be seen, and the cold around me was growing. It was like all the air had been sucked out of the atmosphere, leaving only a cold darkness in its wake. The cries stopped, and that was when I saw her. She was in a black dress, much like my own, with long, flowing red locks, just like my own. But it wasn't me. Her blue eyes stood out in the darkness surrounding us. It was my mother. I don't remember much about what had happened when she and my father died. Just that something had happened, and then they were gone, leaving me alone to fend for myself with what they left behind for me. Every time I had attempted to remember the events that led up to their deaths, I was met with resistance, like a brick wall had been erected to keep the truth away from me. Once she was directly in front of me, I tried to reach out to her, but she took a step back and shook her head, letting me know that it wasn't okay for me to touch her, or even try. Not yet, anyways. Her eyes were shining with what little light there was, with unshed tears. Her chin quivering ever so slightly, she looked at me. Ma? I couldn't stop myself from saying the word. I had to be sure this wasn't one of Hyde's tricks. And when she smiled weakly at me and nodded, I knew it wasn't a facade. She was here. What happened to you? I asked. The smile fell from her face, making way for a sombre expression as a silent and solitary tear rolled down her cheek. What am I? That was the next logical question I could think of. If anyone would know, she would, right? She confirmed my suspicions when her eyes met mine, the flicker of something unseen moving under the surface. We looked nearly alike, except for the brown eyes my father had given me. Even that flicker. She reached up with one of her hands and rested her palm on my cheek, the warmth leaching into my frigid bones and nearly turning me into a puddle on the ground as my muscles sagged. The fear left me as soon as her skin met mine. My darling girl, she whispered, a dark tone in the voice that was unmistakable. We should have told you. Told me what? Her eyes went dark. Then, turning from the bright blue I remembered to a dark amber that held a fire inside them, something shifted behind her eyes again, and her hand dropped to her side. You need to remember. Only then will you understand. Confusion flooded me, and I felt my eyebrows furrow as I looked at my mother's beautiful face. It was almost the same face I saw in the mirror every day, all except those eyes. A warm hand landed on my shoulder, and I turned to find my father standing behind me, his rugged features twisted in silent agony, as if he had to do something he would come to regret. The same shift I saw in my mother's eyes, and in my own when Hyde surfaced, happened behind his beautiful brown orbs, and the fear returned even stronger than before. The expressions on my parents' faces changed instead of a sadistic killer, waiting in the wings to take down its prey. As I backed away from them, they began their advance. Knives appeared in both of their hands, and they slashed in my direction, the blades biting into my flesh of my arms as I tried to defend myself from them. Mum? Dad? No! Get away! I screamed, tripping over the gown I was dressed in and falling to the ground. They were upon me within seconds. My mother gripped the knife in both hands and raised it above her head. Her eyes murderous as they were my father's, I cried out as she slashed down with the blade. But then they were gone. And so were the empty streets and the cold wind. I was in the home I was raised in until the death of my parents, and I wasn't alone. I stood above the broken and bloody bodies of my mother and father, soaked into the bottoms of their jeans I wore. My feet slipped in the warm fluid, their blood warm, covering my hands, and I felt warm flecks of it on my face and neck. The blood coating my arms all the way up to my elbows. My parents' ribs were splayed open, their hearts missing from nowhere to be found. At least, that's what I thought. Until I felt a piece of warm, raw meat rolling over my tongue, and warm blood running down my chin. Screams ripped through the air, bouncing off the walls and down the halls of the childhood home. Then everything went black.